Hey everybody, how's it going? So we're just gonna do a brief lesson about the period. So some of you might have seen the periodic table before. I know in Monique's classroom, the poster of it is the wall, like I think it's above the whiteboard. But this is just numbers and symbols and all of that. But we're just gonna look at it a bit, and yeah. So if you look here. If you look at these numbers in the top right corners, notice how they're going up by 1 each time. So hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, 3, beryllium's 4, 5, 6, and so on, all the way up to 118. That's because there are 118 elements that we know of on Earth. The ones that we're really going to focus on as a class are going to be the first 20, and then probably some more of the common ones that you've heard of before. Things like iron, nickel, copper, silver, gold, maybe mercury, maybe platinum, ones like that. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit here. I'm going to click on the top here on the metals tab. And you can actually see here that the majority of the elements that are in the periodic table are metals. So that includes all the common ones that we talked about, but pretty much everything on the left-hand side are metals. And then you can break it down even further. We're going to talk about some of these other terms here, like alkali, alkaline earth metals. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, not today necessarily. And then you have the nonmetals. You can see that there are a lot fewer of them, and they are mostly gases. So I'm just going to go through the notes here. I know that Monique talked about some of these individual numbers. We're just going to go through some of them again and sort of explain them. But yeah, let's do that. There you go. So here's the periodic table again. You can see how the numbers are going. The atomic numbers. If you think back to the lesson, the atom, we showed that proton, it changes of what the element is. So when we did 2, it was helium. So if there's 2 protons, it would be lithium. 4 would be beryllium. Another good thing about this picture is so you can see that all of the colored ones, they have something in common, or brown ones have something in common, right side have something in common, and they're really have in common, which have something to do with the top. Like I said, we're going to talk more about the different families in a little bit. So like I said, the elements are arranged by increasing atomic number. We can also, there are also rows and columns in the periodic table. Like I said, they're organized that way for a reason. So the rows are called periods, and there are 7 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's also going to have a meaning in a future lesson, but we don't really have to worry too much about that now. And then, I don't know why this arrow is here, but that's okay. The vertical columns, so the ones going up and down, there are 18 of them that are like that, and those are called groups. So that's why these lines here are all grouped together. And here they are numbered, so 1 to 7 and 1 to 18. You might also notice that there's this part that's sort of split off. You don't have to worry too much about that right now. Basically, just what happens is, when we get to these 6th and 7th rows, there are just so many elements that could fit in there that they had to split them off into their own little group. Alright, so here's the box here that I think Monique showed in a previous lesson. But these are this is the important information that you need to know. So you have here's the atomic number, which we said before was the number of protons. You have the symbol here. So each element has its own symbol. This is hydrogen. Hydrogen symbol is H. It also has an atomic mass. every element has like a decimal atomic mass, and that's because there are different variations of elements that might have a different number of neutrons. So this is really just an average number of one's, like the amount of neutrons that it has, sort of thing. You don't have to worry too much about that either right now. That's okay. And then at the bottom right here is the number of valence electrons. Now we haven't talked about valence electrons yet, but what valence electrons are, those are the electrons that it has in its outermost shell. We're also going to be talking about that a little bit later, but that is going to be very important. So the atomic number refers to how many protons an atom has. Two elements have the same amount of protons, we've talked about that, and if they did, they would be the same atom. The atomic mass, that's how heavy the atom is. You can get it by adding the number of protons and the number of neutrons. When we're going to add them up, they're always going to be whole numbers, so you don't have to worry about any like freaky looking decimals or anything like that. All the numbers that we'll do will add up nicely. There are three main categories of elements in the periodic table. All of these ones in blue, so like pretty much the whole table, those are all metals. All these ones that are in like the greenish color are nonmetals. And then we have these like purple pinky ones that are called metalloids. Those are sort of like in between elements. There are only a few of them, and they sort of make this nice little staircase shape. So it's kind of interesting. Mostly we're going to focus on metals and nonmetals though. Yeah, so that's just a brief look at the periodic table. I'm just going to go back to this one here again. This is the one that was in the resources on the Google Classroom, put up by different things, I guess you could say, like different characteristics. So between metals and nonmetals. You can also examine the different groups if you want, or the different periods. So say I wanted to look at period 5, for example, and it would light up all the elements that are in period 5. That's just a brief introduction to the periodic table. We're going to look at it a bit more in depth later, but that is it for today. So I will once again have a good day. Bye.